The main thing I do when I'm painting metal is figure out where the light source is coming first. In this case, I want the light to be facing them. So I want the light to be lighting them from the front on both of them. Once I figure out the parts I want lit, I will leave that area either blank, like the color of the paper, or I will paint it light with the lightest color of the metal or the armor I'm going for. So I will start these as sketches, but I will paint them later. Since I already know where I want the light to come from, the next step is the mid value, and for the mid value of the metal, I actually try to go very dark. This video will be a bit different from my regular painting videos. I usually either cut out a lot of the rendering or I speed it up, but I will leave it as real time, just in case, because it's to show how I draw and paint the metal. I just want to create a heavy contrast between the middle and the light. This heavy contrast is, in my opinion, what makes it look like metal. Now this part in the shadows, I will paint darker than the light, but lighter than the mid value. Metal tends to be a reflective surface, so here it reflects some of the light around it, and the colors that surround it as well, which is why I make it lighter than the mid value. I wouldn't make it as bright as the light side, because it would show as if it had another light source coming from this side. Now this is just a quick formula. Whenever I want to paint or draw something and make it look like metal. In reality, if this was for work, for example, the best thing is to find reference, observe the way the light hits the metal and apply that in your painting. Because there may be many different things that affect it. For example, the type of metal you're painting, or the light source, or even the shape of the metallic object. If you want your illustration to look really good, one of the best things to do is to get reference that matches what you're trying to illustrate. If you can see the object in real life and study it, it would be very good to learn to paint. For example, if you want to paint an armor and have the opportunity to see one in real life, you can observe the way the light hits and think about how would you draw it, what values would you use to portray the change in light. Something else that could help you a lot is to see how an artist that you like portrays metal. You then can kind of see their thought process in the way they chose the values, because sometimes it can be overwhelming when there's so many details and you don't really know how to portray something. The good thing is that when you look at other artists' paintings, you are looking at the way they interpreted the object. So all the work of simplifying shapes and focusing on the right details is done already, and you can learn a lot by studying the decisions of other artists. The ones that you personally like, of course. Style plays a big part on the interpretation of an artist. Style and time period, actually. Another good thing you can do is if you have the opportunity to observe those works of art in person. It can be very beneficiary because you can also see the strokes that they use to portray the armor. Now I will paint these two sketches. The black and white pattern is already established in the same way I mentioned in the beginning of the video, just making sure the middle is darker than the light and the dark. I will start with this guy on the right, because I knew in my mind that I wanted him to have a silver armor. This kind of metal has a certain cool tone to it, so I started the painting by glazing some dark blue on the mid values. I'm going to leave the light value as the color of the paper. It will end up very exaggeratedly bright, but I think it will show really well as metal. I'm also using my tempera paints this time. They are very good quality and they cover the surface and they blend really well with each other. Having good or even decent materials is very helpful when painting, and it seems like such a basic thing to say, but sometimes we try to save money by buying very cheap paints. But when you go to use them, we really get what we paid for. I have so many videos struggling with low quality gouache, so for this demonstration I just wanted to focus on painting the metal, and I know that this tempera won't have the same problems than the low quality paints I've been using recently. When painting I try to follow the shadow pattern I had established, the darker midtones and slightly lighter shadow. Initially there are 3 values: the light, the midtones and the dark. If you want it to look more realistic, you can add more values in between, which is what I'm trying to do here. Just trying to get a softer transition. The initial drawing is more of a guideline for the overall lighting, but I am still trying to maintain that initial layout of dark midtones so I can make his armor look like shiny metal. I struggled a bit with the shape because it really influences where you place your values, of course. These are from imagination, so I'm trying to see in my mind where the shadow would be on an object shaped like this, with the irregular sharp edges. But I think that this little painting formula works to make it look like metal. The best thing you can do for a final illustration is look up reference of the armor you want to paint and study from those. Study from the real thing. And you can exaggerate the elements that you like. For example, when I see metal or silver in real life, there's like a coolness to it in the color. That's why I exaggerated and added the blue on his armor. But maybe when you study metal, you'll think it's more purple, so you choose to exaggerate that color on your own illustration. Give it more purple tones, if that makes sense. For the design, I wanted him to have a dragon-inspired armor, so I added the little dragon on the head, and gave those sharp edges shapes from the dragon wings to other parts of the armor. I was just playing around with the design. I didn't want to just draw a regular armor. I wanted something that was clearly fantasy. And here we have our silver knight. Like I said, I left the blank paper for the whites. It looks pretty exaggerated, but it works. I mean, it reads as metal. I think it could look better if I worked more on the variation to the light, like adding more softer values between the mid-tone and the lightest value. I'm now working on our other knight. This one will be a golden knight. Why am I adding green if he's supposed to be wearing a gold armor? The same reason I added blue on the silver one and not just grey. When you look at gold in real life, it's not really yellow, it's mostly dark values, like dark oranges or dark greens, and then the brightest yellow, the lemon yellows so to speak, would be near the highlights. I exaggerated with the green because I think it makes it more interesting. I just think it's a fun way to paint, when you can exaggerate certain things, either in the colors or the values, or even the drawing. Just like the Silver Knight, when I am starting, I am trying to follow the initial drawing layout for the values. Trying to make it so that the mid values are the darkest ones, to show the reflective nature of the material. Usually when I do a painting of a character, I would start with the character's faces because it's one of the things I enjoy painting the most. But since this is a video about painting metal, I wanted to focus on that. It's why I left the Silver Knight with only the armor painted in. I just wanted to simplify and stick to painting the metallics since I was planning on leaving a lot of the painting footage just in case. In general, I find that it's better to work on all the elements of a painting at once instead of finishing the armor and then adding something else. It's better if you can work on all the elements because it makes it more cohesive in terms of the colors. But it also depends on how you like to paint. If it works for you to just do one element at once and then move on to the other, then I guess that's fine too. All that matters is the end result. In terms of the design, I wanted him to be like the Silver Knight, based on a mythological creature. I was thinking more of a phoenix. My thought process was phoenix, fire, the sun, gold. Although I think it kind of looks like a dragon as well. I gave him wavy wings. I wanted to represent the fiery nature of the phoenix. And I left his armor as more rounded and smoother armor than the silver one. I wanted to have this contrast between the two knights. I added the darker oranges and greens in the mid values, and for the shadow part I used a dark yellow, more on the orange side. All the while still trying to keep the shadow area a bit lighter than the mid-tone area. And I let the brightest yellow on the areas next to the highlights. Here we have the golden night finished. I think it turned out well. And it's the same principle as the other night. All I did was change the colors. So to recap, to make it look like metal, make the middle value the darkest and the shadow lighter than the mid value, but darker than the light.